I know it's supposed to be the book of Easter, but tonight was all about Revelations. That, my friends, is how you end a season. You answer some of our burning questions, give us tremendous spectacle, and then just a hint of things to come. It's the season finale of American Gods, Season 1, Episode 8. Come to Jesus. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to our final review this season of American Gods. So, lots of spoilers coming up on this one. Alright, so like I said, lots of revelations this episode. Nicely done. We got some reveals, we got some character movement, we get some beautiful spectacle, and like I said, just a hint of some challenges that are coming up down the road. So let's kick things off with Billquis, the wonderful tale that Nancy weaves for an impatient Wednesday in shadow while they are waiting to get their finery made for Easter's little shindig. So, beautiful setup there. I love just the whole scenes opening up of the spiders climbing up on the thread and the fabric and him stitching and everything. It's just, again, really tying all of this imagery beautifully together. And of course, like a god, if he is going to tell a tale, he needs his spotlight on him. So, and I love the fact that even at this point, Shadow isn't even making a statement, not even mentioning anything, not an eyebrow raised about this mysterious spotlight popping up, just kicking back and listening to the tale that Nancy weaves, and does so beautifully. We get our background on Billquis here. It leads us to those scenes that we saw in the first couple of episodes. Billquis, of course, the Grand Queen of Sheba, worshipped back in the day, a sexual-based goddess herself. The way you worship is through the skin, and then through the skin you are absorbed. Nobody survives a night with Billquis, but as Nancy says, what a way to go. So we start there. We sort of do a quick little skip ahead to Tehran, 1979, where Tehran, around at that time, was a kick-in place. That's when the Shah was in charge, who was put into place by the CIA back in the 50s. So that was sort of a very Western, very open time, but I love how they also connect that into the Iranian Revolution happening in accordance to that. And I love how Nancy sort of sets that up as the power of a woman and the sexuality and sensuality and the prayers that are offered to women of power, all of the kings attempting to take that from her. Now, while all the kings have failed, this is where the Iranian Revolution kind of comes in. Demeans the power of women in the nation. You can't look at them, you've got the hijab, you've got all the full coverings and such. So this is kind of, in an interesting way, tying in a new religion, kicking out the old religion and how that sort of is replaced and pulls away at her power. This gets her herself to come to America, like all of the gods previous to her, and then her slow decline as she forgets about her queenness, kind of forgets about her godhood. We've seen the people connect to her. The girl that was with her in the disco there in Iran, I guess she was also on the plane when Billquis came overseas. That was the one who was dying there of AIDS complications in the hospital. So we can see as she sort of connects with people and then loses them and then eventually finds herself on the street. Beautiful moment there where she is looking into the Ethiopian restaurant, Marib, that's referring back to her. I thought was a wonderful kind of moment where she gets that reminding of who she used to be. And it is then that we have Technology Boy show up. Like the new gods do, they take some of the old gods, pull them in, repackage them, resell them out to the public. So now we have minor gods, everyone feeding up into the higher gods, Technology Boy Media, and of course, Mr. World there on top. How does he do that? With technology, of course, specifically an app, the Sheba dating app. Seems quite appropriate as everyone connects in with that. All of the desires that are poured into that was not needed, intentional. Poured into the app, poured into all of those desires, all those connections is the group of worship. As Technology Boy says, worship is a numbers game. And the person with the most followers wins. Very much how social media is today. So that is what brings her up. That's what gives her her power back. So when we did have those shots before, when she was wondering what it looked like through a museum, yes, she was. She was in a museum looking at the recovered remains of her temple, which again, also a very powerful scene, seeing that destroyed as again, the new religions take their place, destroying the old religion, seeing that cast down upon her. So now all that remains of her worship outside of an app named after her is these few blocks, these few bits left inside of a museum. So that is, of course, where we find her connecting back in with Technology Boy, who is going to call in that favor. A favor that sends her back to America, to Wisconsin, and what I think is going to be an eventual meetup with Shadow. How are they going to get Shadow away from Wednesday? I think Billquis is the tool they're planning on using. But Shadow and Wednesday do have a date in Kentucky, and that date is with Easter herself. Christian Chenoweth was amazing in this sweet, intelligent, scary, beautiful, all of that wonderfully combined into one actress who just did a marvelous job. The whole Easter scenes I thought was fabulous. The first shots of all of these sickly sweets and candies and just the Easter shapes and sharp colors and the bunnies pooping out jelly beans. It was a beautiful setup. I loved every look about it. The multiple Jesuses, all of the Jesus, I still don't know what the plural of that is, peppered throughout the compound was astounding. Now, and in this, we finally get this moment, which is perfect because it's the end of that perfect arc for this first season, is in this episode, we do have Shadow finally accepting the world that he is in. I'm glad they did it this quickly. We don't have anything dragged out. I know there's going to be a lot more revelations that he will discover, but really, it was time, and I think that this was kind of perfect. The first shot of, and I'm going to back up a moment and talk about Jeremy Davies as Jesus, was just awesome. I mean, I love even his introduction as he walks up and steps in front of the lights, and then suddenly the halo sort of forms around him and then moves off, and his little quip back and forth with Shadow. That was just beautifully done. And then we see of all of the guests, we not only have the Jesus, but we have, of course, Mary and baby Jesus sitting there on the couch, and all. It was beautifully done. I think it was wonderfully phrased, and a great time for Wednesday to sort of put out, this is Easter right here. This is why we all worship her, because it is one of the big holidays. Yes, it's a Hallmark holiday, but it is tied to Christianity. It is a huge thing for the resurrection of Jesus, which is why we have Jesus connected in. As we see later on, this was sort of the deal that Easter had done with media to sort of continue onward, because Jesus was resurrected on Easter, and Easter is what they all call and comes in. Again, it's the confluence of the old pagan 12,000-year-old celebration of spring being co-opted and absorbed in with the more modern Christian religion. Now they're sharing a holidays, so while Jesus also gets power to him through the worship of this holiday, Easter herself, because the name is still perpetuated before the idea, that celebration and rebirth idea, still coincides with it. She still has a named day. She also gets that worship. So again, it was another beautiful kind of example of how worship empowers the gods, how even a secondary or tertiary relationship can maintain their power. Now, of course, also wanting a little sampling of that power is Sweeney and Laura that show up for a little bit of their own springtime resurrection quest. And beautiful now, of course, we've got Laura looking even worse. The spitting up of maggots was nasty. Just going to say that straight off. How upset Easter was that a dead person has been pulled into her house was also great. It's like, they didn't resurrect manners with you. You just be quiet. Doesn't even want to talk to her. Don't even want to talk to her. But she does have that moment. A little bit was able to pull in, find the love, find the idea. Here, maybe Sweeney was going to pull it off. Maybe he was going to get his coin back and bring Laura back. But, boom. Next revelation we have right there, of course, the truth behind her death. Not only was Sweeney behind it, which we also saw, but he was behind it because of Wednesday's orders. She was sacrificed in order to get Shadow in a position where he had nothing left to lose. And of course, even the whole casino bit, which we've traded back and forth in some of the comments here, yes. The whole casino bit was also orchestrated. The perfect plan was ruined by Wednesday, as Sweeney says. Didn't plan for divine intervention. Okay, hard thing to plan for, especially when at that point Laura didn't really believe in anything. So yes, now that is, I mean, that is a huge drop. That's a huge confirmation. We did suspect this when we found out that Sweeney was behind it, but the whole, that he was behind everything, that is a bigger picture. Did love Laura having Sweeney by the balls, literally by the balls, to get the answers that she wanted. I thought that was a beautiful shot. But mainly we have, the real issue is that Laura can't be resurrected by Easter because Laura was killed by another god. And because of that, that is not something that she can undo. Which means this might be something that you have to actually get Odin to do. He's not into resurrection, but Easter did say she couldn't do that. That wasn't her job. So it did leave the door open that there was another possibility of Laura getting her life back, but it's not something that Easter herself is going to be able to do. All right, now we have the whole last sequence, which was just amazing. It's very cool, and it's, I like it on a couple of levels. One, we get a revelation. We have Odin revealing himself to Shadow. We get to see the breadth of Easter's power. We get to see really the kind of conflict starting between, or officially starting really, between the old gods and the new gods. But it all starts based on an idea that was been kind of bothering me, which I'm glad they, in a way, at least sort of addressed here. And that is, I haven't really been sure what Wednesday's plan is. Technology Boy hits it early on when he's talking to Billquis, and he says, it's all about the number of followers you have. It's all about it's a numbers game. And I'm trying to figure out what Odin is actually trying to sell. Because he's talking about getting people to worship them again, but I'm not sure if that's something that can actually exist. I mean, how are they going to get their name out there? How are they supposed to get their presence out there and invite people to worship, to change from the distraction that the new gods are offering into some sort of active worship? I've been really curious how Wednesday is planning to do that, and they answer that question in pretty startling scenery here when finally Easter lets loose. Reacts to the storm clouds. I think it was kind of a two-part thing. I think we have Odin revealing himself out to Shadow, and that was sort of in a way summoning him strength, and that was summoning the clouds and everything else that was around. It's something that Odin does very well, is summoning that weather. Brings up the clouds and then sacrifices the dancers to Easter. Summons that power, reveals himself, and uses that power in order to sacrifice the dancers. Are they alive? I mean, they seem to be faceless sort of like creatures. I wasn't sure if they were actually alive and if that would be an actual sacrifice. Seems to be. It played itself off. But I didn't really know, were these guys supposed to be people? Because they were awesome, by the way. The whole dancing was very very much as, of course, we have media showing up as Judy Garland, so we have the background dancers in some sense there, but also sort of reflected back to a little bit of the Michael Jackson that Mr. World had used earlier. So those were very cool, and the replication, the kind of intimidation of them marching around Easter in that moment. But media overplayed her hand. I don't think Easter was really going necessarily for whatever Wednesday was trying to sell, but media kind of put her in her place. It was kind of like, you're lucky that you have me, and you could have been aside, and I think she just pushed it a little bit too far. So when Wednesday saw that, made his proclamation and made the sacrifice, that gave the power to Easter, a direct sacrifice directly to Easter, for her to be able to use those powers, clear out the air, and then reverse spring. I thought she was like taking all the energy out of the plants and killing everything, but no, it was reversing time and pulling everything back into the ground. And that was where, and it now makes sense now, because now I see where Odin is doing that. Showing the world, spring has stopped here. You want it back? You've got to pray for it. Pray for spring. We know that we'll all do it. We'll pray for rain. Pray for rain, pray for spring. What else? Take it away from people, and they will become very active then. And that seems to be the truth behind Wednesday's plan, or at least how he plans to get things going. All right, so just a couple of things. One, first off, Orlando Jones was awesome. Mr. Dancy is amazing to see. He was just fabulous. But when Shadow freaks out there and it's just saying, it's like, you just chopped off someone's head and now you're getting your suit made like a godfather? And then Nancy looks back at him and was like, who the fuck do you think you were dealing with? It was perfect, because it is sort of a little hint as to what comes later on when he reveals himself as Odin. But it was just such a perfect little moment of Nancy kind of looking back like, you have no idea, you're hanging around this guy and you have no idea who he is or what's going on? Man, that takes a special quality of a guy. The bunnies on the road greeting Wednesday and Shadow as they enter into Easter's realm there in Kentucky was awesome. I mean, one, it was kind of cool to see the bunnies chasing them down the road. But then when they are getting up and Wednesday makes the statement of, we may not be initially very welcome, and just runs over the pile of bunnies that are on the road in front of him. That was awesome. I mean, really, only in the sense that it was the bunnies that caused the accident that caused Laura to lose the coin last week and so on. So sort of a little protective area, I guess. Easter didn't really know that they were coming. This is just sort of a general protection of keep these people out at this time of year. But I just thought that was funny. Last week we have Laura swerving to get away from the bunnies, and on this week we have Wednesday gunning it and just running them straight over. He's a man with a plan, and he is not going to be stopped by bunnies. Jesus sitting in the pool was awesome. And then as he's trying to set his drink down, and of course, it just drops into the pool. It was a beautiful, tiny little moment. But also from there, it was cool having that little conversation between him and Shadow about faith and belief. You know, as he says, you know, I've always believed. I don't know what not believing is, which would make sense for a Jesus godlike figure. But his advice at the end, where he says about trusting his senses, that you have to trust what it is that you see and feel if you're going to journey down the road. You have to trust the information that you are getting. It's the only way that you can move forward. I thought was quite beautiful and quite poignant. And I think really did play the role at the end there when finally Shadow does see Odin revealing himself, sees what Easter is able to do, and finally just accept that, yeah, I'm in the realm of the gods and I believe everything that I see. I'm sorry, did Easter call Shadow pink chocolate? I'm just going to leave that. When Wednesday gives Easter that dressing down, beautiful scene, beautiful moments right there. Again, I love Jesus behind Easter. Just, I feel terrible about this. It was just, It was so beautiful. Again, there are a lot of nice, really small, simple moments here that are just so entertaining and just say so much within their smallness. It was just perfect. All right, so by episode end, we have Odin revealing himself fully, for at least a half a moment, Easter with a massive demonstration of power and effectively the gauntlet thrown down, as Mr. World utters there at the end. Fine, you will have your war, and this will be the war that will end you. So, with that, we get everything set up. Well, just about everything, because of course we have Laura stepping out herself in just a pasty, clear-faced nastiness, asking to speak with her husband, who is overjoyed to see her, though I also think slightly disgusted by her appearance. So, you know, it's an interesting point. The war is there, but Wednesday might lose his man. So, we are going to have to wait for another year in order to see how that all plays out. All right, so, but before I go, I want to give a big thanks to everyone who has subscribed and who has commented over these past episodes. Totally have loved engaging with you guys and keeping the conversation going. It's really meant a lot. I'm going to throw out some quick shout outs to quite a few people here, so stick with me. Jack Butler, our mythology professor, who has laid down all sorts of knowledge down in the comments. Jack, thank you so much. A learned hand, you have also been really helpful. Riverjack Caritas, Joya Davis, T52 Mama, Avaritas, Terrotiste. I'm probably butchering some of these names, forgive me. Starbrand, Lennon Myers, Doug Miyagi from Portugal, awesome. Boy Tamilo Michelle from South Africa, Sergio Andrande, Magneto Brown, Cam Schufna, Sinba Trey, Red Claw 87, Christina Jones, Reading Rainbow Bright, Sobs Walk with Purpose. Some of you have been with me for a while, some of you just joined up. There's a lot more of you. I could go on forever with this. But I just want to say real quick, thank you so much to all of you and everybody else that I missed for checking out these reviews and keeping those conversations going. So, for a final time for this show, if you did enjoy this review, please go ahead and hit that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, as usual, section below, throw them down. Tell me what you thought about this season, what you were looking forward to in next season, and yes, I am probably going to read this book very quickly, because I can't wait till next year to find out what happens. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Darren Jakes, but don't forget, if you are not a subscriber, you can be one very simply. You won't miss anything. We've got Fear the Walking Dead going on right now. We got Game of Thrones coming up. We've got Inhumans coming up in the fall. Plus, I'm looking out for maybe a different summer show to do also this summer, because things are kind of spaced out and so anyway, there might be something else dropping out. So if you are a subscriber, you won't miss any of these things. You can become one by just hitting my little face right there. And then I will throw up our latest review for Fear the Walking Dead. You can check it out right there. So that's going to be it. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye. Messed up my poster.